We got many updates directly from Elon Musk and other Tesla executives over the weekend. First, Elon confirmed that if any of his companies go public, he'll prioritize the long-term shareholders of his other companies like Tesla. So might it be Starlink that's about to go public? Second, in a very big statement, Elon said that of those retail shareholders who's already voted, 90%, yes, a massive 90% have voted in favor for both resolutions. Should we take this as a good sign, or is it still too early to tell? A number of Tesla executives then came to share what they think of Elon: the director of AI, Ashok Alaswamy, the director of TeslaBot, Milan Kovac, and the vice president of supply chain, Karan Bujraj. On a separate note, Elon has clarified that there will be no Model Y refresh coming out this year. And finally, a very big milestone has been passed. Several electric vehicles now cost less than the average new car. The new version of full self-driving, version 12.4.1, is now in some customers' hands. We'll cover that in a separate show that's upcoming. I've got Jeff Lutz with us. He's an ex-CVP of supply chain, chief quality officer of several Fortune 100 companies, and he's now the CEO of his own supply chain consulting firm. Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, Herbert, great to be with you. Lots of news to go through.
Every weekend, lots to drop, and this particular weekend happened to be that not only Elon was dropping some great big information, but also a lot of his own executives stepped up. We'll cover all of that. So the first thing that I think is quite important to share is that, Elon said that he's mentioned something like this before, but if any of my companies goes public, we will prioritize other long-term shareholders of my other companies, including Tesla. Loyalty deserves loyalty. So this seems to be related, of course, to the shareholder vote, where, there's some shareholders saying they're going to vote no because they think, they have this opportunity to renege on a deal. But also that if you're a long-term shareholder, he wants to make sure you get, some sort of prioritization. Do you think he's referring to Starlink? That seems to be the most logical thing that's going to go public next.
Yeah, I mean, it seems so. And in terms of his longer term companies, Tesla and SpaceX, SpaceX is now, I think in the latest funding round, worth over $200 billion, Tesla over $550 billion. So he has a track record of building these gigantic companies that are continuing to grow and can probably, be multiples of themselves here over the next several years if they execute. So what he's saying is, look, he built these other companies, using, his assets that he acquired from, building up SpaceX and Tesla. So he's saying, look, I'm going to make sure that those shareholders are taken care of as well as we build out these new companies. And to me, it seems like it's this X Holdings that's forming, over some period of time. I know there's pros and cons to that, but it feels like that's what it's moving towards. But there could be, several, company IPOs in the midst of that happening. And I think he is referring to Starlink. Starlink is doing phenomenal. Again, everything that he enters, he drives scale through it. You look at SpaceX, you look at the amount of cargo going, you look at how rapidly they're building product, and of course you look at how Tesla is scaled, and so Starlink is undergoing that in that same framework, and I believe it will be next.
Thanks, Jeff. So just to confirm again, his interest and care for the small investors. John of Tesla Owner Silicon Valley posted this. He said, Wall Street analysts don't get Tesla. Elon Musk has always cared for small investors or retail investors who were there through the thick and thin. Elon replied saying, I really do care about that. So he's just reiterated he wants to make sure that investors in Tesla, do well. And so do you think, Jeff, that this might, I mean, again, we can't read too much into it, but could it be that he's saying, I'm not going to leave if the vote is poor?
Yeah, we've talked a bit about this. I don't think, I think this is about getting Elon's time and attention, and the ventures that have the ability to grow and grow massively. And it depends on the products they work on. If there's AI in those products or not, for example, I think that's a huge factor. And this is about compensating him, as promised. And it's also about, if you look at him, he's an asset in the marketplace, just like you're trying to, acquire somebody for one of, a company that you own and you want the best talent out there. What do you do to get the best talent? You put out a compelling offer that makes your place of business the place where that person wants to work. Again, part of it's about compensation, part of it's about the culture and so forth, which he owns and creates basically at Tesla. But to me, this is all about how do you get his time and how do you get his attention? He has many other things he can do. And I think there's definitely a good, 5 to 10 years of work to basically transform. He's already transformed vehicle propulsion platforms and how vehicles are made. And now, the next step is to make them drive themselves and eradicate this, 100-plus-year-old problem of cars, car accidents and killing people. And if you can do that, you've left a mark on society for forever. They'll be talking about this transition from you remember when you used to have to drive cars and now you don't. So I think he is motivated to stay at Tesla. I think there's I don't think some shareholder with 9 votes is necessarily going to get in the way of that, or some judge making a single ruling. But I think shareholders do need to come out and support him. And I think institutions need to support him, especially the ones that partook in the success from 2018 to where we are today. And, CEOs, I mean, there's this weighing contest. I see some of the comments regarding, but look at the last year and it's a car company, it's not growing. And you have to look at things, CEOs work in 3, 5, 10-year time horizons. They set vision, they set culture. He's in the middle executing as well. And if you judged, every CEO by this 1 year performance, there would be a lot of mega cap, Magnificent Seven CEOs that you would be wanting to remove as well. So I think you need to judge them on a horizon of multiple years. And if you look at what he did over that time frame in 11xing the company, and now you look at the vision he set out and the decisions that were made around vision only, the cost structure of the products, gigafactories, energy, and starting the humanoid program and the whole approach to AI and building up an AI team. And if you look at these decisions, they've set up Tesla for the next 10 years as well. And that's what you pay CEOs to do. You pay them for the vision, and you need to see the performance and the balance sheet, and the company eventually needs to produce, and Tesla has produced. And yes, the company is between growth waves. There's no question about it. And yes, it's missed, earnings estimates over the last couple of quarters. But he could be the CEO for 80 quarters, 100 quarters for all we know. And I think we're going to take 3 or 4 and judge the 100-quarter career that he could be presiding over. So those are my thoughts on the topic. And, I look forward to a positive vote. I believe there's so much to do here. And I don't believe this procedural issue is going to sway him as long as the shareholders are behind him. And I think we need to show that.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. This next post by Elon, I think, is a very important one. So in response to the Norway Sovereigns Fund, who has indicated they might vote no on a shareholder meeting, Zero Hedge had posted this, and Elon said, yeah, this is not cool. If they actually surveyed their constituents, they would discover overwhelming support in favor. So far, roughly 90% of retail shareholders who have voted in favor of both resolutions. The public sentiment is unequivocally supportive. So for me, this is a good sign. This shows that, he's given out a metric. Obviously, we can't take this too far because we don't know how many have voted. And the expectations would be that, not 100% for sure are going to be able to vote. We know many people are having troubles. And also just in general, right? People don't take action. What do you think, Jeff? What percentage of retail shareholders do you think have voted? How do you take this kind of a statement? Is that a good news?
Yeah. And there were people that were concerned about the statement itself. And there's an SEC rule regarding commenting on this. And as long as it's provable and it's factual, there's not an issue, with the statement. I think it's a good sign, but these things are all really about turnout and voter turnout. So, if that was 50% of the shareholders that turned out so far, that are 90% of those are in favor, that's great. But we probably need, 65, 70, 80% turnout to make sure that, any of the larger no votes are offset. So I think the key thing comes down to turnout. And I think Elon did recognize that what was good in that, in the data set that he has seen, is that there is overwhelming support from retail shareholders, which is the group that he cares about probably the most. So I think all of that ties together nicely. And I think that's an important message for him to see and for him to convey. But there's still a long way to go. There's still people that, like you said, don't have access to vote. So there's a couple of days left. I was showing a family member how to vote. It's easy once you understand where everything is and how to do it, but just pointing people in that direction can take some period of time. And there's 10 million estimated shareholders out there, retail shareholders. So that's a lot of people to try to wrangle. Not everybody's on X or on YouTube or even knows that there's a vote coming. So those are the challenges when these things are done. And I hope the judge takes that into account about how many people are that want to vote that cannot. And most of these people that obviously want to vote or want to vote in favor as well. So I just hope that that the judge sees this and takes this into account. It has been to me a very nonlinear. It was a very surprising ruling, and it's been somewhat of a nonlinear process. So there may be some more surprises, but I think this is a moment where Elon is trying to gather retail support and trying to gather control. He's not asking for more money in a future plan per se, but to him it's more about the control to have to not be in situations like this where institutions that don't sleep on the factory floor, that aren't in those supply negotiations, that aren't trying to figure out how to triple the company, have the ability to make major decisions on on how the company's actually organized. So I mean, all institutions should have the ability to vote. There's no question about it, but it's the amount of control that they have versus the actual visionary that's leading the company. And that's why you see a lot of these companies that have dual class structures in how they're set up. Google set up that way, Meta set up that way, Snap set up that way. A number of companies are set up that way, and that's really to cater and to support visionary founders and leaders.
So not only did retail shareholders, 90% of those who voted are voting in favor. 3 of the Tesla executives stood up on their own. They were not asked to do this. They came out and wrote articles, wrote papers, or wrote posts talking about why they believe Elon Musk has been so critical on Tesla's success and what's going to happen in the future. So we've got Ashok Alaswamy. He's in charge of Director of AI and Autopilot. He's the person in charge of full self-driving. He recently said that Tesla's full, robotaxi, right? Referring to robotaxi, he said that it's the beginning of the end. He wrote this long article, and he talked about Elon and AI at Tesla. He said that Elon has been the key driver of AI and autonomy at Tesla. He's always pushed us to achieve great things. I'm not going to read the whole article, but basically he talked about how, it's amazing how Elon very early on made the bet to go vision only, and that it's ironic. I don't know if I can't remember the word he used, but how it's that here's a car that has the least amount of sensors and have the greatest capabilities for autonomy compared to anybody else out there, and only Elon was able to take the guts to do that and then make it happen. And so he's speaking very highly of him. And then if he then said that I'd like to clarify that this is my personal note that I decided to write to explain Elon's importance to Tesla. While the timing is partly in light of the shareholder vote, I truly believe everything I wrote. And of course, Tesla's out there promoting everybody. If you haven't voted yet, please do that this week. It's done. You can do it all the way until Thursday, but that's it. And every single vote matters at this point. That's why you've got these executives coming out. What's your thought when you saw this, Jeff?
Yeah, you can tell. I think Elon is a challenging person. He will challenge you if you work directly for him. But I think these people going in versus coming out are on a different level in terms of their capability, their ability to execute, and lead their teams. So and a lot of these people are really long tenured too, which is for a company that was originally set up in the Bay Area. I mean, 10 years greater than 3 or 4 years are more rare. And these folks are there 8, 10, 12, 15 years or more, working for Elon. And you can tell they're basically saying like, look, an average company, this would basically be an average electric car company and may not even survive if it wasn't for, we know this to be true. It's not may, it's probably, there's no auto company, I think, since Ford besides Ford, that hasn't gone bankrupt in the US. So if you look at the decisions that are made around cost structure, the decisions are made around autonomy, and really setting the culture for the company around simplification, around cost management, around cost avoidance, around, the best part is no part and so forth. This establishing this culture, then actually sitting in the meetings and actually driving and establishing. And it's one thing to say these things in a town hall setting. It's another thing to be in the meetings and to direct in that manner. And, there's other notes that we'll see as well. But, Ashok's basically saying like autopilot wouldn't be what it is. It would be some derivative, it would be some whatever product, and not the best thing out there. That is the ability to literally transform, transportation forever. So he's put him in this position by the decisions he's made. And I think we'll see a couple other notes that are, that talk about different sections of the company to do similar.
This is Milan Kovac. He is the person in charge of the Tesla bot and robotics. And so he said, Ashok summarized the past decade very well. And then he wrote his long post. When I hopped in my friend's Model S in 2015, it hit me in a weird way. That car was running software all around and so forth. He explained that. I won't show all of his note. The part that was very interesting was, he's talking about Tesla bot. And one of the paragraphs, he says, when he announced Tesla would soon start a humanoid robotics program to fuel a future of abundance at AI Day 2021, many once again laughed and doubted. 2 years into the program, Tesla is actively testing early versions of what could well be the first full-fledged humanoid robots equipped with articulated hands, autonomously conducting real tasks in a real factory via an end-to-end neural net running entirely on the bot's compute hardware, and again, using 2D cameras only. So this is Milan, praising Elon for creating something out of nothing, right? People were still laughing, and robots were not something that people thought would be coming anytime soon. People were saying, a decade away. And now, just 2 years later, when he puts a mind to it and he gets a team together, they do very well. Thoughts on Milan's comments?
The way the team was set up, it was small, it was focused. I'm sure it was handpicked people. And these are the decisions. And I'm sure he put a cost constraint on the team. He put, really, you think about, he's kind of like the chief product for like, this bot will run autonomously. It will do all local inference. There'll be safety switch. There'll be all these different things. He's basically setting up the feature set for what he believes will be a successful product. And he talked about, I guess, on a live stream this weekend as well, as multiple bots per human on Earth. So he thinks this is going to be in the many billions, maybe north of 10 billion in terms of volume. So it will be the greatest scale play and volume play in history. And it'll be the greatest, obviously, for any of his companies, to pull this off. And this will now change the course of, honestly, humanity and labor. as we know it. Obviously, there's a number of milestones to get through to enable this, but I think Milan's talking about, again, how the team was established, his leadership. All this goes back to leadership, culture, and setting the constraints and driving the teams and coming up with really good ideas and being part of the solution. This is what great leaders do. And this is, he's talking about Elon in this case. And I think these are all great examples of, when again, there's many products that Tesla may have wanted to do that they're not doing, or they deprioritized. And that's also a great mark of a true mark of a great leader as well, is like the products you didn't do. So prioritizing the bot, I think, would be another major key decision in Tesla's history. And, we're within a year of this being out there and being in factories. It's very close to being a real thing.
So do you realize we just talked about the person in charge of Robotaxi, and then we talked about the person in charge of Tesla bot, just reminding people how crazy the kinds of markets we're entering in with Tesla. This next person is the vice president of supply chain, obviously incredibly important for the success of the auto business and the company in general. This is right up your alley, Jeff. Karn Budaraj, who's the vice president of supply chain, said, "Please vote. It takes less than 5 minutes. Elon's pay package aligns with the company's success. Ambitious milestones were set, and many sacrifices were made to achieve them. The results benefited all shareholders. This would not have been possible without the deep personal involvement of our CEO at all levels of the company, including our vast and complex supply chain, whether it involving convincing partners to scale manufacturing, getting on late calls with supplier CEOs to unblock constraints, or brainstorming supply chain strategy for batteries. Elon made himself available at all hours of the day, despite dozens of competing priorities." This is, somebody saying that Elon is involved. He is part of it. Of course, he hires the best people, but he is the one that can make things move. Regardless of how difficult things got, we never felt alone because he was right there in the trenches with us. Elon is a driving force at Tesla, critical for the future of the company. With him at the helm, Tesla has the potential to be a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise, which will lead to tremendous prosperity for all long-term shareholders. This is my personal opinion. It's funny how people think that Elon has all these companies and he's distracted, when it's the complete opposite. How many other CEOs do you know is actually deep in the trenches? What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. And it's a good note. It's a good note from Karn. And all I'll say is that when you think about the major decisions around the battery supply chain, for example, or just Tesla's supply chain in general, of where you multi-source, and then your sourcing strategy in terms of network latency around the factories, all these are big decisions that he's involved in. And I know firsthand, I've had conversations with people that can attest to his involvement in these major strategic decisions. And then the other thing I've always kind of joked about is when there is a supply shortage, and my guess is there's one pretty much every month that Tesla is dealing with, it's some level of severity, and some are massive. Obviously through COVID, there were big, massive ones all the time, but there's pretty much a couple every quarter that I'm sure get escalated to Elon's attention. And I've often joked with people, like, how would you like to be the CEO or the team on the other end of that call? And Elon Musk is trying to walk through and understand why you can't meet his demand and get parts into his factories. And someone like Elon is going to break it down into the laws of physics. And how do we turn this supply shortage? How do we break it down by minute, by hour, and understand, into the laws of physics? Is this something that's recoverable or not? And why did it ever happen in the first place? So I would hate to be the other person on the end of that call, because you have to be ready to answer, and he's going to ask those type of questions. So I think he's intricately involved. I think as a supply chain leader, knowing that he is at the helm, it gives you great leverage to go into these conversations and say, hey, look, I spoke with Elon. This is very important to him. If you can make sure that X, Y, or Z can happen in this contract, if you can make sure that X, Y, or Z can happen in terms of us having access to technology, you can make sure that we could have supply on a particular start date, he would be very appreciative. And if you can't, like, we're going to have to go together and have that conversation with him and help him understand why we can't. So I think he's the ultimate hammer. If you are a supply chain leader, he is the ultimate hammer to have above you. I'm sure he challenges them and his team as well. And supply chain isn't all about getting parts. It's also about not getting too many parts. And it's about reusability. It's about cost, obviously. It's about simplicity. So it's all the cultures that he drives within the company. So that was a great note from Karn. And I think he's basically trying to express in words how it works. And that basically Elon is kind of like a chief supply chain officer, and basically ultimately making sure that whether these strategic decisions around cost or supply, that Tesla is in the best position as possible. And if Elon's not at the helm, I will tell you this, that will change the behaviors of the supply base. Now, it may take some period of time, but it's certainly he's certainly somebody that suppliers would respond to, and if he's not there, I think it's a different dynamic for supply chain as well.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Regular viewers of this show know your background, but for those who don't, Jeff is actually a chief vice president of supply chain. He is at the executive level of massive companies, not just the little guys. He can't name them because they're the Fortune 50s, Fortune 5. But Jeff, thank you so much. Your knowledge and experience is just amazing. I mean, this is your bread and butter. You can actually advise them, but appreciate your thoughts on that. So 2 more stories here. One is Elon came out and clarified that no Model Y refresh is coming out this year. I should note that Tesla continuously improves its cars. So even a car that is 6 months newer will be a little bit better. You know, I'm one of those people, Jeff. I was holding out. We need to buy a Model Y, but I'm going, I don't want to buy it before the refresh. Now he's confirmed it's not going to come out this year because rumors started coming out. And of course, he can't let that happen. Thoughts on this comment here?
Yeah, I mean, I think he said what's going to happen. He said that there's going to be an intermediate few vehicles that are going to be released before the new platform is released. So I think that's the plan. So I think you will see a different 3-ish, Y-ish type vehicle, within a year before this next generation platform scales. This next generation platform is going to take some period of time to scale. It's not going to be like they're going to introduce it and have, a couple hundred cars out and say that, we're ramped and we're good. It's not going to be like Cybertruck at that premium price point. So it's going to really take them some time. It's going to be a different thing. It's like, I remember the first quarter of Model Y, I think they shipped like 1,200 vehicles, and that was a quarter. But this product, there's no way that that's going to be acceptable. They're going to have many, many tens of thousands, if not more, of this vehicle ready to go and out into distribution. So I think my point is it'll take some time to get to that. And therefore, they will have these intermediate spins of vehicles, which will pull forward some of the unboxed technology, get those modules pre-ramped, and they'll utilize them for cost reductions in these new vehicles. So I think there's a plan. It's just not this year, in terms of having vehicles in supply. So yeah, I wasn't surprised to see this.
Okay. We got 2 big stories that we really should have done separate shows. One of them is FSD. We will do a separate show, so watch out for that coming out tomorrow morning. But the other big story that it says a massive milestone here. It's, long-range electric vehicles now cost less than the average new car in the US. This is the new study. We've been following this closely, and now you can see that the green, cheapest 300-mile range electric vehicles have crossed the mark. They're now cheaper. At least these 3 brands of cars can do this. Average price here in black, U.S. car price, gas cars. And you can see that we're there. We are there. This is from Bloomberg and Edmunds. So the 3 manufacturers are Tesla, Hyundai, Kia. They're doing really well. General Motors now offer EVs with more than 300 miles. of range for less than the cost of the average new vehicle sold in the US. The most affordable is Hyundai's 2024 Ioniq 6, which comes with 361 miles of range and a price tag that's 25% below the national average of roughly $47,000. If you can get 361 miles, there really isn't any range anxiety, and it's 25% below. That is crazy. And then the final story, of course, is FSD came out, and so select early access is using it. Thoughts on those final two stories, Jeff?
Yeah, this is going to, a lot of this move was off the cost per kilowatt hour of batteries, and really companies making that next stage of improvements in terms of vehicle construction and simplification. But it's a tale of two different things. If you're to take that graph and look at it in China, for example, there's real bifurcation of basically there's everything that's above 30,000 US dollars and everything below it. And most of the volume is below the $30,000 point in China. So that's the challenge. There's some different challenges by region that need to be solved for. And I think a vehicle below 30,000 would be tremendous in the US as well. I have a family member that's, kind of going back and forth and looking at the different rebates for EVs and so forth. And then just saying, hey, look, I can get a Nissan XYZ for in the low 20s. And there's really nothing there, at least new from an EV perspective. So I think there's still this big move yet to make. And that black line going, in the direction, basically $50,000 per average transaction price in the US. That's actually a real problem. So what's happening in the US is the time that people are keeping their vehicles is now at a record. I think it's 12.6 years now that people are keeping a vehicle. And then with interest rates, so you have inflation driving the price up, you have inflation driving the total cost of the consumer up in terms of interest rates, and 1 in 6 people are being rejected for an auto loan currently. So yeah, this dam needs to break, I think, in the US. It needs to continue to go lower. And it's going to take a couple of years, but you're not going to hear it right now. When everybody hears the word EV, they think expensive. And I think that chart's showing that tide is turning. Then on FSD, this is a big move, and we'll talk about it in another video. But when these large models change, you don't just bring a new model in, slap it in, and then the car just goes. There's some work that Tesla needs to do to debug it, because there's new features being added and so forth. So I think that's what we're seeing on 12.4.1, and we'll hear more about that, in the next video.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And you're going to be physically at the shareholder meeting in Giga, Texas this Thursday. You're always there, Jeff. You make a point of making sure you fly out there and you buy all the Tesla cars. So thank you so much. Appreciate you.
I like supporting them. Love the product.
Very supportive.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Thanks,
Look forward
Jeff.
to it.
Okay, bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.